restrictions? Because we have seen some suburbs in our area crack down on this. What suburbs and what exactly are they cracking down on?
Yeah, I think I'd like to start with just defining e-bikes because you mentioned in the intro there, they can go 30 miles an hour. Those aren't legal e-bikes. Legal e-bikes, there are three classes that are recognized by the state and almost every other state. And so what's happening when there's a crackdown on these other devices is that it's really confusing the public and the public's perception of what's an e-bike versus what has kind of been lumped into out-of-class electric vehicles. So we're working to educate the public on the difference between those. And it's important that over time, folks really understand what that is and what a legal e-bike is.
So with that being said, really quickly, what is a legal e-bike versus the ones that I mentioned that do go 30 miles per hour or more? Are e-bikes slower than that?
They are. There are three legal classes. A class one is a pedal assist bike, which means if you're pedaling, you get some assist, but the motor cuts out at 20 miles an hour. A class two e-bike is very similar, except the rider doesn't have to pedal. It has a throttle, but again, the top speed is 20, which, is reasonable. We'd like to see people moving a little bit slower, especially if it's crowded. And then a class three is a pedal assist where the motor cuts out at 28. So those 30 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour, those devices are a result of the market kind of jumping on the interest of individuals and trying to find other ways to get around. And they're they're dangerous. And those are the ones that municipalities and the state and folks and Ride Illinois, we need to get a handle on. The market has moved really fast. And now we're to the point where we kind of need to rein the market in and educate the public so they know they're buying a legal class of e-bike. So we definitely acknowledge that there are safety concerns, but the ordinances that are being enacted in local municipalities are often focused on those out-of-class electric vehicles, not necessarily the legal e-bike riders.
So what about those blue and green e-bikes that we're seeing downtown? Are those considered e-bikes? Is that in that same classification? I know the green one is a scooter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the blue ones I'm guessing you're talking about the divvy bikes?
Yes.
So those are going to have a governor or a top speed. I believe they're class one because you do need to pedal. The scooters are different. Like scooters, a low speed electric scooter has a top speed of 10. What's happening again, kind of in media reports and social media is, there's scooters that can go 30. Those aren't low speed electric scooters. Those really don't belong. And again, with the market just flooding, the market being flooded with all these devices, folks are just finding these things online, typically online. They sound great, but they don't realize the safety issues for them, but also the other people that they encounter.
Yeah, I think some of it is ignorance. You see it, your kid or someone in your family may want it, and you're buying it and not thinking about the speed. You're thinking about the purchase. When it comes to regulating this, are the regulations specifically for the speed, or is it also where people can ride these e-bikes as well?
It's a yes and, unfortunately. The regulations that we've seen in mostly north and northwest suburban communities so far from a state standpoint, there's restrictions on age, restrictions on where they can be ridden, requirements for driver's licenses and helmets. It's really what happens is we're overly restricting the mobility of adults and children, and what will likely result in more trips by motor vehicle. And I think it's important to point out that over 99% of roadway fatalities and serious injuries are caused by motor vehicles. So this strict crackdown on, we just call them like e-mobility devices, which include e-bikes, it's misdirected. It deflects the attention away from the real issue, and it's concerning because it's limiting. We think of, say, low-income individuals and families, individuals, whether they're young or old, limited mobility, folks who can't drive or choose not to drive or don't even have access to a motor vehicle. Those folks are now limited in how they can get around. And it's clear to us that portion of the population, and that population exists in every community, is not being considered when these ordinances are being enacted. From what we have heard it from others and read in media reports, it seems like these ordinances are being enacted in closed doors without public input. And if a topic such as this that has such an impact on how people can move about really needs to be developed with robust public input. And that could be on, the folks who are admittedly have been, startled by someone going too fast, but it's also the people who need and want to use these things to get around. So as we look to the future of transportation, we really encourage municipalities to embrace these modes. Yes, focus on public safety, but embrace these modes. Figure out how to integrate them, how to educate the public. Don't, have a strict crackdown, which basically says, if you want to get around this community, you're gonna have to drive. Or if you're a kid, your parents are gonna have to drive you there. It's really a bigger view. Sorry.
No, I'm so sorry. What are some of the precautions, the safety precautions that people can start doing to make it a better thing for the community and safer for the community?
Yeah, it starts with the point of purchase. Make sure you're buying a legal class of e-bike. Whether it's online or at a bike shop, an e-bike by state statute has to have a very clear label that says class 1, class 2, or class 3. If you're buying a device that doesn't have the label and has a motor greater than 750 watts, it's not a legal e-bike and really doesn't belong on roads in Illinois. So it starts there. I think another thing that folks should be doing, shameless plug, we have a bike safety quiz. Much of the questions and the content will apply to someone riding a regular bicycle as well as an e-bike. There are responsibilities. When we're riding in shared spaces, which is what roads are, whether you're in a car or on a bike, there are responsibilities there. And so we don't just want to put people out on these devices without having any kind of education or understanding on how to use them.
Dave, what's your opinion about this becoming a state law versus it being, because I know, for example, it's a law now on the books, or it may even be considered an ordinance in Hinsdale, but you go a few blocks away to, for example, Burr Ridge, there's nothing on the books. What do you think about it becoming statewide?
Well, the state law that exists currently, which says class 3 e-bikes, you have to be 16. E-scooters, you got to be 18. Like, those are in the books. Those to us are common sense. I think where we would like to focus, and something we've been talking about internally and with partners, is a state law that defines out-of-class electric vehicles. Right now, those don't belong, or they don't fit in any legal definition. So we really want to be able to define them and then give municipalities the ability to decide where they belong. But in that point, it's a discussion that does not include the legal e-bikes. Like, they should be considered differently. So our hope is we can get a law passed, you define it, and then the municipalities that have passed ordinances go back and revise those ordinances to clearly distinguish between these different types of devices. So Illinois is a home rule state, so communities can do what they feel is best for their residents. So even if a state law were to pass, I think we'd still see more restrictive ordinances being enacted. I think what's being missed right now, and certainly in our opinion, is they're not common sense, and they're an overreaction to what folks might be seeing out on the road.
Say someone is riding an e-bike in a town they're allowed to, but then they cross over to a town that has these restrictions. What kind of trouble could they be facing?
Yeah, and right, that's a great situation because a lot of these communities that have enacted ordinances are adjacent. Yeah, you could be a 16-year-old in one community and it's perfectly legal to ride, and then you go to another community and it requires you to be 18 years old. Another community requires you to have a driver's license. So the repercussions really range from fines, which we have some guidance, and I'll share it with the producers, some guidance of how to kind of go about the discussion. But start with fines, impounding the devices, and then one community, which happens in my community, Elk Grove Village, it threatens to take youth into police custody until an adult or a parent can come and pick them up. That is really confusing. if I'm a 16-year-old, I'm trying to get around maybe to a summer job or trying to get to school or something like that, am I willing to take those chances? Do I even know where the municipal boundaries are? The fact that these ordinances vary so widely is really concerning, and it shows that they really were developed seemingly in a vacuum, and that the communities are not talking to one another as they're rolling them out.
Dave, if someone is watching this right now and maybe they are confused, because it is a bit confusing on where and who and all of that, where can they get more information if they're a parent that wants to know?
Yeah, I would point folks to, and again, I can share a link, a page that we put together that really boils it down to common sense. I'll share that link with the viewers. It's on the Right Illinois website, and I think it just gives folks a greater understanding of the big picture. Yes, again, we want to acknowledge that folks can be startled. There have been some incidents, when someone was bumped or knocked over by an e-bike. From what we've heard, it's always been an out-of-class electric vehicles. So we want to bring the discussion, it's an emotional topic. We want to make sure that it's a frank discussion, and that the information that's being put out there is factual, and it's really a more holistic view of transportation within communities. So yes, we'll share if there's a way to share some links to this story. We can share that and get some folks information that they should have. But parents in particular, be careful what you're buying your kids, because a lot of the folks who are benefiting are the manufacturers that are developing and selling these devices, but they're not safe. They're not safe. They can go too fast. And it is, in the end, parents' responsibility as to what they're buying and what their kids are using.
Yeah, and you would hate for something catastrophic to happen. Dave Simmons, Executive Director with Ride Illinois, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time.
All right,
Take
thank
care.
you.